When Liz plays, you get all that personality, that vision, that fire, that tenacity, and then it's not like a tap you can just turn off when you're not on the court.
Guys are young girls and they're getting all these messages from everyone under the sun.
I get very emotionally invested, so it makes me angry.
I'm really passionate about netball.
Hello and welcome back to Here If You Need, your new Netball podcast where we say what everyone else is thinking. As always, I'm Emily Wilson, and alongside me, she shares a tattoo with not just one, but two ex-Seven Stars players. It's Nia Jones.
I'll let people
Hi,
guess
Nia.
who.
Are we letting them to guess, or are you going to tell us A, who they are, and B, what the tattoo is?
No, it's a tiny little spaceship. We were at Seven Stars at the time, and we had some free time in Worcester city centre, and we came across Cookie's Custom Tattoos, which is no longer there, probably after they saw the results of our tattoos. And yeah, there's actually 4 other players that have the same tattoo as me in different places. So maybe that's a little game people can guess.
4.
4.
I also heard that you saw one of those players get a certain tattoo filled in, and you were like, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah. So she went first. She had it coloured in, and the rest of us are like, yeah, we're just going to have the outline. And then that first player was like, you're joking. So, yeah, thank you. Why did you find that one out? That's weird, but...
Yeah, I told you I had some up my sleeve.
I know.
So we've just had a really good chat with Sam Bird, haven't we, Nia? So that is coming up later. It's definitely stay tuned for that. It's really, really good. She goes in deep. We talk about the social media fallout from the weekend,
the secrets of her success at Pulse, how they pick an England team, what goes on in the signing windows, how much players are paid. Yeah, don't miss it.
But first, we're going to just do a very quick roundup of the exciting weekend that was in round 2. So I think we've got to first start off by saying the broadcast was a million times better, I would say. We could actually see all of the games. Well,
wow, the bar is low. Yeah.
Yeah. And they were pretty good quality for me. I didn't catch that Nottingham Forest game live.
No.
So I think I got a sort of good stream of it. But I do hear there were broadcast problems. I mean, I think if we were comparing it to sort of general broadcast, we would be like, it's okay, it's not amazing, but compared to the week before, massive step up. So yeah, congrats to Sky, BBC and NSL for really bringing
and
that
again
back.
Skynet will put a statement out on the back of what they described as a substandard quality stream. So again, at least an immediate apology and accountability, but 3 out of the 4 matches I think were pretty bang on, so much better.
Yeah. And also good for them for changing the stream. I feel like often they leave the sort of errors in the YouTube link. So also a positive step. Other points from the round in general were the physicality sort of continued to step up. Nia, did you notice that, especially in the Cardiff Pulse game?
Yeah, massively. But we said it that we noticed it from round 1 and round 2. A lot more. I wouldn't necessarily say contest being allowed. I think it's more like there's so much going on. It's impossible for the umpires to see everything. And I know we'll touch on a particular incident with Sam Bird later on, but yeah, extremely noticeable. And it's hard, isn't it? Because we want to create conversation, and it is a form of entertainment, and we like painting people as heroes when they do great stuff and villains when they don't do some great stuff. But yeah, we've now got so many eyes and ears across so many different forms of the game that you can't get away with anything, unfortunately. And if you watch any sport, there is people absolutely pushing the boundaries. And you'll struggle to find a top netballer who has not been in a session told, you can't do this action because that umpire will see you, but you can do it on this side because the umpire won't see you. The best defenders in the game have all those little tricks of deception up their sleeves. So not surprised by it. Again, fortunately, there's been no injuries. And from a spectator point of view, it's been nice and entertaining. But yeah, particularly in the match that you mentioned, the Dragons and Pulse one, it wasn't necessarily the off-the-ball stuff. I just thought there was some attacking contacts that went against Dragons that I was struggling to distinguish as any different from lots of the other challenges that were going on. And obviously, an attacking contact is really detrimental because it's probably off your own possession and own centre pass, and it's gifting possession back to the other team. So this is not me being biased to Dragons, guys. Just because I'm Welsh and played for them, can I just say this? If you think I'm biased to Dragons, you have no idea how things ended between me and that club. So I just wanted a close game. You want to create an atmosphere. You could sense in the arena, if you were in the arena, you could sense the Dragons were on the front foot and Pulse were in survival mode. But it's a testament to Pulse that they managed to still grind out that win when they were in, by their standards, Gear 2. So, great game.
And Nia, that is something we are going to cover, is it, on this pod at some point, your departure from Dragons?
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
Great. Okay. Just tempting the viewers.
We'll wait for a slow news week. We haven't had one in the NSL so far.
No, we haven't. And on that, I do think that in that specific game, I think one of the umpires in particular didn't have a good game. He was missing quite a lot. And is that something we just need to accept, that, umpires have bad days too? Or is that something we need to be more critical of? Like, does the umpiring standards need to get higher?
Yes, they do. We've been saying this in this league for a while. However, he is an experienced one that's umpired down in Australia as well. I do think they are still volunteers, which I think is a problem.
They don't get
Because
paid at all.
I don't believe they're paid a penny. I think they get expenses to cover games, but I don't believe they're paid. I believe Gary Burgess is, but that's only because he has a separate role as head of officiating at England Netball. So his is a separate role in there, but he won't be getting paid to umpire games like any of the others. So that's worth noting. And I know last season as well, when Paul Lizzie Sawnby accidentally gave a 1 instead of a 2 in that Panthers Leeds game, that there was loads of scrutiny on it, and then a realization that these people are rushing from their families and full-time jobs to umpire a match live on Sky as well. So I think that needs to improve, but I also think it's something for the officials to look at and think, do we change the rules slightly and actually have both umpires in action at the same time, or able to call serious foul play, even if it's not in their half? Do you want that reserve umpire having even more of an impact? I know they can have a say now if there's confusion over centre pass, but there are other ways that they could seek support in an ever-changing netball game. It's getting rougher, let's be honest.
Yeah, I think that's a whole podcast in itself. We'll try and maybe get Gary Burgess on, or another umpire on. The other point I wanted to bring up from this weekend, Nia, was the super shot and how influential it was in the wins. Because if you look at the scores from the weekend, it looks like there were quite a few blowouts. But I think that's all because of the super shot. I mean, Leeds sort of capitulated after the second quarter super shot. They took about a whole quarter to sort of mentally recover, and they lost it from there.
Yeah.
But I felt like the other two games were much tighter than the score suggests, and it was just that super shot that blew out the score a bit. What's your overall take on the super shot this year?
I agree with you. I actually loved Panthers' comeback after
Loved it.
Simon McCloma called time. And I couldn't hear what she was saying, but body language is loud as well. And it clearly got a reaction. So it was great that they managed to immediately actually step up like she asked them to, and get it back to a game that really did ebb and flow. It was like they were taking it in turns to just own a quarter each and then slapped off the gas. But it certainly was just Stroika coming through at the end with her super shot prowess. I thought credit to Anya Williams as well, having to run out a whole game, 60 minutes at her new team, with the absence of Rhea Dixon. But that was a great game, and Panthers could have taken it, I think, were it not for the super shot. But then the Leeds Loughborough game, I mean, that was a blowout. That is what you call a blowout. And, we're saying that Leeds have got one of the best defensive units in the league, but even they couldn't handle how hot that Loughborough front end is, with their triple threat in there. And then I don't think it was a real factor in the Dragons Pulse game. That was just a dogfight, really. But
scrappy dogfight.
Yeah, it's definitely how teams are managing that final quarter. We saw it last week with Forest and Mavericks. It's that decision making when you're under fatigue and under pressure in those final few minutes. I think more than just the super shot.
My last takeaway, I think, is even though some of those scores look quite big, it generally feels much tighter. The netball played is much more competitive between all the teams, and I think that's a good sign for the league ahead.
Yeah, it is, and it's the reason that NSL brought in this new era of professionalism is that they wanted tighter matches. They wanted unpredictable results. And we're not going to see that overnight. We're not going to see that in the first couple of years. But I think there's been real good signs. And we've seen that in Super Cup as well, real signs of the smaller teams, the teams that we expect traditionally to finish in the bottom four, really feeling like the fear factor is gone, belief is higher. They're all training a very similar amount. They can actually really challenge. And on their day, like Pulse were nearly caught lapping, if you are anything but your best, you can be got at. So I think that's great for the league.
So now I'm really delighted to welcome our very first guest on the show. She is CEO and Director of Netball at London Pulse, the reigning Netball Super League champions. She's a former England international, former assistant coach at Mavs and Seven Stars, and has been central to the Pulse's rise to one of the most dominant teams in the league. It's Sam Bird. Welcome, Sam. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I can't believe I'm your first guest, so feeling very special to be your first guest. So thank you.
Well, we were actually debating, right, when are we going to introduce a guest and who do we need to get on first? And Emily's a massive Pulse fan, but also in a league where everybody wants to win it, who better to bring on than the reigning champion, the one that most recently achieved that feat. But it's worth saying as well that you actually agreed to come on before your round 2 match against Dragons. And then quite a lot has happened since then. So it's not that we've got you on and dragged you on after what's happened on the weekend, but we're still very grateful that you've come on. And I did drop Sam a little message to say, like, are you happy to talk about things that have been going on online? And Sam was the one that said, absolutely, let's do it early doors. So let's go with that then, Sam. There's been lots of clips broken down frame by frame, slower than I've ever seen a video slowed down before. It's made its way all the way down under. Everybody's had an opinion on it. We're talking about the shove, the two-handed push, whatever it was, to force Vicky Booth of Dragons offside by your wing attack, Alicia Scholes. Did you see it at the time, or did you see it subsequently? And what were your overriding thoughts on it?
I don't want to sound like Arteta, who's my favourite manager, but I did not see it. I didn't see it at the time. I think it's fair to say I can't remember at what point in the game was, but I think it was fairly late, and it was already a pretty revved up game by then. So I think my eyes were everywhere, and I didn't see it. And obviously Alicia shouldn't have done that. It goes without saying. But I guess I'm really conflicted, because obviously in netball we want people talking about netball. We want good conversations and talking points, and whether that's something someone's done well as whether somebody's made a mistake, which I think this was in Liss's case, a sort of error of judgment. And that's all fine. I think what concerns me slightly is the sort of Lord of the Flies type rounding on one player. And I think as a sort of come out over social media, there were probably another 10 incidents in that game where you would say rules were broken, and either were seen or were not. And that's also fine. If somebody else had seen something that KC had done and clipped it, fine. But I think I would just like to, for those people that sort of choose to round on a single person when there was so much going on in that match, I think is just makes me uncomfortable that one player is the target, and then there's this whole other sort of narrative that gets drawn into one second incident in one game, that then is drawn into, oh, this is why she doesn't play for England, she's got a bad attitude. And I can tell you, I've been working with Alicia for 4 years now, and she does not have a bad attitude. She's passionate, she's fiery, and yes, she makes mistakes, yes, she gets involved in the game, but I love coaching her, and I wouldn't want her to be any different. And I think that's my concern about criticize anyone you like, but when it sort of becomes a bit of it felt a bit like being in a playground and having one player picked on when other players have done other things. And I think that is something we just want to be mindful of, I suppose. And also, it's sort of like I'm obviously in my 50s, so I've spent the last 20 years saying, wouldn't it be good if women ran the world? Because it's such a flipping mess because men run it. And then you have our sport, and over International Women's Day weekend, we've got a load of women just being quite spiteful. And I'm just like, come on, I just want us to be better than that. So, yes, have an opinion, say what you think, but be balanced. Recognise there was lots going on in that game, and indeed all the other rounds that we've had so far. And it means a lot to the teams. It is passionate, it is feisty. That's what we're going to get. That's what we want. So let's not be too quick to, hone in on certain players when they make mistakes.
Yeah, I think it's really well put, and I definitely missed it at the time as well. I was commentating on the game. I'm quite literally paid to be seeing what's happening, and I totally missed it as well. And I'm really conflicted on it because I am no stranger to off-ball incidents. I think what was difficult for me to really get behind it and stick up for it was that it wasn't usually those duels are you're either jostling for the ball and you're fouling somebody, or you're jostling for position. And for me, Liz realizes she's not ball side and she panics a little bit, obviously, at a really critical point of the game. And it absolutely fools poor Nathan Begley, the umpire, which I think is a little bit like when somebody dives for a penalty in football. People go absolutely mad about it, even if there's way more serious incidents that go on elsewhere. But why do you think there has been a little bit of a pile-on then? Is it because actually we've all been talking about the fact that we think Liz is talented enough to get into the England team? Is it because she's clearly very good at social media? She's got 103,000 followers, way more than anybody else probably playing netball in the Northern Hemisphere, I probably think. It's clearly unfair, but why do you think there's been a particular pile-on on Liz?
I personally don't think it's the nature of the incident because, as I say, if you watched 4 rounds of netball, whether here or in Suncorp, you would find situations like that happening in every game. So I don't think it's that. I think because she is on social media and does have a bigger following, then she naturally attracts fans and enemies. It's sort of easy to be painted as a pantomime villain. I think if you're already putting yourself up on a platform, she does respond as well. So you can argue, well, she wants to respond because she wants to get her side of the story across, but then that creates further dialogue. So I don't know. But what I do know is the DMs she gets are disgusting. From racist, from death threats to just plain right revolting, disgusting messages. And she shouldn't have to put up with that just because she's a big name in netball. And I think if you look at what's sort of said publicly on social media, if you then magnify that by 100 and imagine what's going into her DMs, that's what that athlete's having to deal with. And so I just think, all of us are here. I'm on here today to give you my opinion, and half the people won't like me and won't like what I say, and that's fine. That's up to them. But I think because she's a player that wants to always sort of say, it is a heat of the moment thing. It is, netball's the only game where you have these strong lines, right? Where you go offside, you're round the circle, you've got players in restricted areas, you're going 100 miles an hour. It's a quick game, it's a passionate game. You can't expect these girls to be perfect through a game. And I think that's a little bit of also understanding, of course, that was a breach of the rule, but you can't have vanilla, right? You can't, if we don't want a vanilla sport. And
Nice guys finish last, Sam. Nice guys finish last.
yeah, exactly, go and watch the Bake Off, right? If you want netball to be interesting and have personalities that you don't like or do like, but they're people that occupy your mind and you've got an opinion on them, then that must be a good thing. But I think it crossed a line with Liz in terms of you know, that I just sort of feel like that was one incident in the whole game. Yes, she made a mistake, but there were plenty of others. That had a similar fan base. They could have picked on 4 or 5 things that KC did. Someone else had a go at Georgia Rowe, I saw, saying, oh, she was dreadful. And I think she missed 2 shots. So we have to understand that people do have an opinion. We want them to have an opinion. But when there's sort of a pile on to one player, I think we have to be very careful, because what we see on the outside of it, you can bet your bottom dollar she's getting 500 messages that are a lot more dark and sinister direct to her, which is deeply unpleasant for our young athletes.
Yeah, and I've definitely spoken to people who watch the game, and they're mostly men, actually, or fans of men's sport, that say it's your job. If you want to win at all costs and you want to finish as champions, you bend the rules as much as you can and you push those boundaries as much as you can. If the umpires missed it at the time, then fair game. That was their opinion. I wanted to ask, though, because I have definitely never been a CEO or a franchise director or head coach, but I have been a captain at 3 different franchises, and how players were on their social media accounts was something that I was very passionate about. I found it difficult to find the balance between us needing to have a profile because we're still a growing sport, wanting to be genuine and authentic, but also being respectful and professional and never threatening to bring the club's name or the national governing body into disrepute, whether that was teammates of mine putting inappropriate things from nights out on social media or biting back at fans. We've seen a lot of that over the weekend from Liz Scholes, and also a 13-minute video. You actually commented on the video. So is that difficult for you as a head coach then, to be encouraging your athletes to have a profile, to grow your club and grow your sport and advertise themselves, but to also still be acting professional for their clubs?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a really difficult balance because, actually, as you just said, Nia, you want brands to be interested. We want sponsors and partners to be interested. We want people to follow netball. We want a bigger profile. But what I would say to that, and particularly at London Pulse, maybe it's me because I'm a flawed character myself, but I like personalities. My whole roster is made up of interesting people. Yes, of course, they're all amazing netballers, and that's a given. But I personally like working with people I care about, people that I admire, people I want to help, and they're people first. And if you're going to recruit interesting people, they can't always just do what you would like them to do, because they're their own people, right? So, Licia will have had a lot of messaging, a lot of support, and she certainly has, about, give yourself a break, come off social media, get to bed. I think I said get to bed and have a rest and, have a biscuit. But they are their own people as well. And again, that comes down to, these are the real people in the arena. They are the best netballers we've got. They're in the arena, but they are all completely different personalities. And, even if you go with our club, you've got Liz, Zara, Everett. They couldn't be 2 more different people, but they're both such interesting women to me. Like all my players are. And I don't think you can artificially stifle them either, and you can say, look, my advice is to do X, my advice is to do Y, but they are their own personalities, and that's how they play. When Liz plays, you get all that personality, that vision, that fire, that tenacity, and then it's not like a tap you can just turn off when you're not on the court. They are the people they are and the personalities they are. And as I say, that does present a challenge for me with my sort of CEO hat on, and obviously quiet life, right? I just have players that are easy and compliant, but that's not what I'm recruiting, and that's not what netball needs either. And you Nia, as a player, was certainly not vanilla, and
Oh,
that's
goodness.
what made But that's what made your whole makeup of you as a player was your personality came out. You know, you were resilient. You would give everything. You would die for the shirt you were playing for, and that's what we want. And then to say, "Oh, but now you're getting some heat. Can you just, be like Miss Marple now and cut out your personality and be someone you're not?" Is not straightforward. So for me, it's more about looking after Liz's welfare, and making sure she's okay and making sure she's supported. But you can't change personalities, I don't think.
I'd completely agree. I think it's in danger of you're losing those personalities. Like if you look at tennis, Nick Kyrgios comes to mind. You turn on the TV to watch Nick Kyrgios over a lot of the top players. Not that he's playing anymore. And same with Lamine Yamal. Like off the court, they do stuff that isn't necessarily right, but on the court, on the field, you want to watch them play. And that's how I feel a bit like Liz Scholes. And I personally feel really sorry for her. I worry that she's not seeing the positive messages as well, because there's a lot of negativity that comes through on social media and people don't necessarily send the positive stuff as much. And human nature is to take that negative on. And I think it's a real danger. Social media is such a big danger, and it must be so hard having to manage that side of professional athletes now. These guys are young girls, and they're getting all these messages from everyone under the sun. And I just want to talk to you a bit about that, Sam. Like, what your role is, CEO and director of netball, but are you a lot more than that, really?
Yes, I mean, I'm very emotionally invested, or it makes me upset. I get very emotionally invested. So it makes me angry. So that's how I feel.
Yeah.
And what you want to do is go on and punch everyone that's not nice to my players, or me. But that is not life. That is not how we live. You've got the President of the United States tweeting mean stuff about people. You've got you've got so many bad examples on social media that I think ordinary people think that's okay, and we can't. I can't change that, but the players that we have at the club, we really care about.
Yeah.
I think as well, I absolutely loved the recent podcast you did. Emily, remind me of the title of it. Was it Great Coaches?
The Great Coaches Leadership. I would
Yeah.
go and give it a listen. If you haven't, we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And in that, Sam, you talk about the fact that you have your players' backs no matter what. And I don't think that's a fluke in why you've then gone on and been successful. I know from my experience, the clubs and environments that I felt that I could be 100% myself in a training environment and then feel backed on game day, even if I made mistakes behaviorally or tactically or technically. I think that is where you get the absolute best out of your athletes. So should we move on to the reason why they became the reigning champions? My first question was, you got to the final. It feels like yesterday that you guys were sitting bottom of that table, still trying to develop a pathway, still trying to recruit the team that you wanted to be. You actually made the grand final in 2023. You lost that grand final. Do you remember what you said to the girls, either in the huddle or in the changing room? What were your words to them in that moment? I remember listening to a podcast on Jurgen Klopp after they lost the Champions League final, and the players didn't want to talk to him. They definitely didn't want to go out for drinks in the bar that they'd hired a private party for, but they spoke about how positive he was in that moment and how that actually made them believe that they would go on and achieve it the next year.
Yeah. A similar, Klopp's another one of my favourite managers. But similar. I remember we sat down and the first thing I said was, "Suck up how this feels, and remember how hurt you are and how shit this feels right now. But I 100% trust that we will win this. I 100% believe this group of players can win this." And I always believed that. I think I was saying, when you get interviews at the beginning of the seasons with lots of teams, oh, we all want to make top four, la la la. But it was a genuine, I know these players are good enough to win this, on keeping the main roster together. And I think they know I'm authentic in that. and I was authentic in that, and the whole club was authentic in that. And it's like, okay, we've fallen short here, we've fallen at the last hurdle, but we know why. I can remember some of our players who I won't name, but they were so nervous on the day. They'd never been in a final before. That, you know, nerves got better of them. The opposition was really good. They couldn't just quite have that sort of tenacity to make a difference in those small moments that get you across the line. And we probably had to lose in that way in order to be able to push on to then come on to win in those tight moments. And again, I completely believe in the roster I've got this year, and they know I believe in them. And I obviously went bolo after the game on Saturday.
You went bolo
And
after
it,
5 minutes.
well, yeah,
Wait,
because I
wait,
knew.
sorry, what does bolo mean?
I actually don't know,
I
but I
went
assume now.
I went
Yeah.
mad.
Oh, right.
And it's interesting, Nia, you said that, because um I knew from the first 5 minutes we were not on it. I knew it. And that's down to how well Dragons set their stall out. But also we were just not quite right, not quite there. And at the end, because these players know that I rate them, I back them, I trust them, I am then able to say that wasn't good enough. Don't do that again. Let's really look hard at what went wrong. Was it our prep? Was it our focus? Was it them? Was it all of those things? We will look back at that. But because they know ultimately that I do value them so much as people and players, and I trust their quality, that enables me in those moments also to be authentic and to, you know, and it's a bit like some of them are looking at me like, right, she just needs to vent now. Like, let's just let her have her moment, because they know me inside out as well. Like, you know, I cry in front of them. You know, they see all of me. And when I first started coaching, I used to think I had to be perfect. You know, like if you've had a crap day and then you go into training, it's like, hello everyone, how are we all? And now I'm a lot more authentic with them.
Hmm.
And I think that all goes towards the squad all trying to, you know, row the boat in the same direction.
It sounds to me like you put an awful lot of time and effort into your report and your building of relationships with the players. And I know that my favorite coaches over the years, I don't remember them for their tactics or training sessions. I remember them because of that bit. How much of your role is actually just like managing personalities, expectations, that sort of thing? And how much of it is actually just planning coaching sessions? Because you are although you've got really talented individuals, you're also an extremely well drilled team with and without the ball. But you've also proven that you can upskill players. You've had Cheen and Fidoju since they were teenagers, and they're twice the players they were when you got them. So there's clearly some actual player development going on at Pulse. Can you tell us how much time you then dedicate to the actual on-court stuff, and what does a typical training week or training session look like for London Pulse? Because I know, like, I'm fascinated by that, but I definitely know, like, Emily and fans would be fascinated by that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of time goes into both. The benefit of being slightly older is I need less sleep. So I work quite a long day. So my day will sort of be business management, CEO things up until about 1 o'clock each day. And then I'm full on performance from that point on. And I still plan all the sessions. I've got a great team around me, Fiona, Murta, and Nat, that help me with those sessions. We've got an army of analysts, because I believe in analysing the game is really super critical, and I'm a right pain in the butt. I want information all the time. I want it now. I get a report that's probably about 30 pages long a day after the game, and then I'll be like, can I also have this, please? And we've got our sort of set KPIs that we know what it takes to win. So we have all our markers that's set against some really good research I did with some of the analysts about what it takes to win, where are we going to win and lose these games. So pour over the matches, but then have invested a lot in the team around me. So you're only as good as the team around you. So have an excellent nutritionist, amazing S&C guys, sports psych, the lot. So they're all feeding into us in a MDT meeting once a week. Got great physio that was the England physio, great doctor.
Can I just ask,
Yeah.
are these full-time roles?
No, they're not, but they sometimes think they are. A bit-
What, for the
so
amount of
they're
for the amount of times that you ring them in the day?
exactly, and then I have to remember I'm the only person up at 2 in the morning, so I have to. But they're part-time roles, Emily. But they all of those people from all of those specialisms 100% give more time than they are paid for. And again, I think that's something we've done well at Pulse, is that you've got to be in it or you're not in it. There's no, oh, I'm just going to come and do this as my little. You are either immersed in this club mentally, physically, everything, or we're the wrong club for you. So the staff we have go above and beyond the whole time. So in terms of planning, so um, what maybe people won't know is that you talked about the success of the club, Nia. That's come through our pathway. And I also we video our 17s and 19s and next gen sessions, and I watch all of those as well.
Wow.
So I know exactly who my best 17s are. I know my best 19s are. If a 17's showing they need pushing on, they'll get to double up in a session with the 19s. Everybody's playing the same way. And so what we do is we have a sort of framework of those structures you talked about the Pulse way to play. So hopefully you can tell our identity is to win ball, to play quick, to give players freedom to play with flair. And that runs through our whole club. And that's, so far over the last 4 years, the 17s have won the league for the last 3 years, the 19s have won the league for the last 4 years. Next gen's been a bit more bumpy. Seniors are obviously doing well. And so those sort of principles of training and what the plan is runs through the whole club. So if I need to bring in a next gen player, they already know how they're expected to play and what it will feel like.
That's really interesting. What do you think has been the benefit of the Next Gen League? Do you think that's been a really good impetus by NSL?
I love it. I really love it. I wasn't sure because there's a few weird rules in there, like a few overs, and then you can play your Super League players down, and if somebody's on return to play, they can play down. But actually, I really like it. I think it's really competitive. And I think it is a good platform for genuinely the next gen to come through. We've obviously got a bottleneck in that we've only got 8 teams in the Super League with 10 on the roster, and so there are certainly players playing next gen in certain teams that I think are good enough to be Super League elsewhere. If they were located elsewhere, they might be Super League players. But I think it's really good, and I think it's really good from coaching perspective as well. It's definitely a step up from academy. It's home and away games, so there's a lot more accountability on continued improvement. The importance of those players being ready to step into Super League is critical. And yeah, I'm a fan of it. I think it's really good. I think it's keeping more players at the top end playing netball, where we might have a dropout rate if they're not making Super League. I think Next Gen is a good competitive league that the players enjoy playing in. So yeah, I'm a fan.
Oh, good. Can you give us any names of the next big London Pulse stars?
Ask her to put a kid under pressure here, Emily.
We want to hear it here
She might
first.
be advertising them to another club to come in and swoop them.
Well, yeah, but so because of that, I'm going to go for a real baby. Who isn't yet ready for Super League, but there's a kid in our under 17s called Dahlia, just went to Netball Europe with England. She does happen to be at my grassroots club at Turnford, but I don't know her from that. I've seen her on our video. And she has only been playing netball properly for about 18 months. She's a high jumper and a track athlete, goalkeeper. She's going to be just, if we keep her on track, keep her injury free, all my staff will tell you, they're like, Sam's gone mad again.
Was
Like,
she
she's talking about a 16-year-old kid or 15, she might be 15, 16.
Like Gracie.
She's amazing. Like Gracie, different to Gracie because she's not strong yet because she's tall. She's sort of like a bean sprout at the moment, but amazing young talent. And I can tell you, I get as excited about seeing someone like that. And there's about 5 in that age group that could be like that, and in the 19s and in the next gen. And I'll be like, I want to watch her. How do we help her upskill? We brought her up into 19s. Let's give her some extra training. Let's wrap around her, make sure we can give her all her support on schooling, make sure she's not doing too much. How do we balance her track career and her netball career? How do we indoctrinate her to choose netball over track? All those things. So there's probably in the club, I reckon about 10 athletes that I think over the next 3 to 5 years could make Super League.
And could you let me know if they've got any Welsh heritage in them, please? That would be greatly appreciated. Let's talk a little bit then, because it's not just your pathway that you watch videos of. I was talking to Emily about like the signing window, and this is another fascinating part of netball that we're not overly privy to, what goes on behind closed doors. And it's a bit of a mess in netball because it's open to your current athletes for a while and then it opens up, but it doesn't necessarily sync up with athletes playing in New Zealand and Australia. And I have actually got a story about how I actually reached out to Pulse. It was back in 2019 or 2020.
I remember.
But my overriding memory is that straight away you answered the phone. We had a really long conversation and Sam gave me really accurate feedback on both my strengths and my areas for improvement. And this is before she even knew that I was going to call her inquiring about a contract. And I can't tell you how rare that is to even get a response, never mind an actual phone call. I know another few players that have reached out to Pulse over the years and they have nothing but positive things to say about Sam's response, whether that was a yes or a no, sorry, we're full. An awful lot of coaches don't even reply to those messages. So just how much are you constantly scanning, constantly looking for maybe that missing puzzle piece? And what is the signing window time like for you as the head coach?
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm glad you remembered.
Yeah, you said I wasn't very
And
good at backing ups, and I have to agree, but there we are.
I'd forgotten that, but I'm sure I said lots of good
Yeah,
things as
yeah.
well. I think, in fact, I remember we talked about you were going to have to up sticks and come to London, and we talked about that whole picture and how you needed to make sure it was right for your life. I think as well we talked about. So I think, yeah, number one, I think ultimately I am the ultimate netball nerd, right? So I will watch any netball going. I enjoy watching netball, and I watch all the games across New Zealand and Australia and here. I watch most of the Prem games here as well, and I'll watch the next gen games and the 19s. So I've got a fairly good handle of who's around. But I tend to watch it as a fan first, and then if someone gets my attention, then I'll go back and look critically at that athlete to see, do I like them? What do I like? What do they need to improve? How do they fit into our identity as a club? So yes, I do watch a lot of netball, and I'm interested in netballers per se. So that's like, it's a nice thing. I enjoy it.
You
The signing
seriously
with
don't sleep, do you? Because you're making me feel extremely lazy the amount you squeeze into a day. But yeah, carry on.
I just don't do any housework near
Okay.
either, so I don't do anything else really. But the signing window is flipping difficult. I mean, it's a right royal headache. I have to say it's easier now, or it has been, when you've got a good roster and when you're doing well. those conversations with players about coming back are easier, right? Because it's easier, you're the easier thing to sell. But when you're not at the top, which we weren't, when I first came to Pulse, it run for one season, and the roster had been put together late because Pulse got sort of like a late entry into Super League. So my predecessor had quite a hard job in getting a roster together and did okay, but they came last. And I can remember thinking, who am I, who am I going to get to come to this club? Hey, do you want to come play for me? We're bottom, and we're in London where it's nice and expensive for you, and we can't pay you much money, but I promise you in 5 years' time we'll be great. I mean, it's just an impossible conversation. And because of that, I've always just looked at talent, because I know talent with competition inside our training environment will get better, and it has. But now it's a lot easier to retain players, because obviously we're doing well. But you get the stretch at the other end, because success means every other bugger wants your players, right? So, all your top players get. You're not allowed in the league to approach a player until the window opens. Well, I can tell you, all of my players get approached before that, every single one of them. So they get, unofficial approaches whilst we're still competing. So that can be a distraction.
And not
Um,
all players have agents either, do they, Sam? So are they going directly to the player as well?
yeah, yeah, get every approach, bump into you in Sainsbury's type of thing, oh, fancy seeing you here. So yeah, so you get that, and then obviously your top players want to compete in the best league in the world, and sadly we are not yet the best league in the world. I would like us to be, but we're not right now. And so you get top players that like, should I go somewhere else, even if they don't really want to? Am I not completing my playing career if I don't go and do a stint in Australia? What does that look like? So you get pull from other leagues who also don't really take any notice of our own rules. So, if you're in Australia, like, you just contact player when you feel like it, right? You're not going to think, oh, there's a signing window in the NSL, because so what? So, and as you alluded to, Nia, the signing windows don't match up. So often you've got NSL is first, and then there's a delay for Suncorp, Panday, and Z. That windows are slightly different. So you might think you've got a player that's sort of like, well, I think I want to come back. I love it, but what if the Swifts want me?
Yeah.
I might wait for that. So there's a lot of challenges on timing. And then there's also the actual breach of contract itself, where I think it's fair to say over maybe the last 3 or 4 years, players have breached contracts and just gone anyway, not at our club, but across the league. And there's not much you can do about that, quite frankly. And also, if you've got a player that wants to leave, and I am a lawyer by background, there's no point me going, well, the letter of the law says you got to stay and play for me. They're going to be completely miserable.
Yeah.
You've thwarted their opportunity to go and play somewhere else. That ship sailed, quite frankly. So if you have a player that really wants to take up an opportunity somewhere else, it's pretty impossible to stop that. So signing window is very, very stressful time. And it's like the Greek gods are mocking you, right? So you win the final, and then the next morning the signing window opens. I mean, I can't go and get drunk on the final. It's like I'm literally, the final ends, and I'm like, yay, yay, 10 million years of work, we've finally done it. And then I'm like, right, signing window opens tomorrow. So it's mad. It's mad.
So can I just go into a specific example? So this year you got Kama Maseko to come over, and so was that all done after you'd won the grand final, or had you been sort of working on that relationship? Were you sure that she was the player you wanted, or did you have sort of another few options as well that you were like interested in? How did that all play out?
Yeah, that was because she was not attached to a team anywhere. Those conversations could happen earlier. But I had to be really sensitive around that because the player I was contemplating releasing was obviously playing for me, and also a player I care about very much. And so there's a real balance about the timing of those conversations. I did interview 3 players for that goal attack position, and ultimately Camo was the one that shone through in terms of when I interviewed her, she was talking about what do you think I need to get better at? How do I get better? How do I contribute to the team? I want to come and be part of this, but I also want to improve. And she, for me, just had those sort of yeah, those sort of traits that I felt would be good to bring her in for the team. So yes, it's I always try and have conversations with the players. Lots of them are like this by video because they're on the other side of the world. But often it's how they come across in those meetings, and we're a club that is team first. We're always team first. No one player is bigger than the club. And for me, that's what I need to see with a player that wants to come and join us, that they want to come and contribute, but recognise they want to get better and be part of the club's success.
How difficult are the conversations with the players that you are releasing as well? I would find that so
Awful,
hard. Yeah.
awful, because I invest so much in them, emotionally and personally. It's awful. It's like a breakup.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's sort of one of those. It's not you, it's me. It's just awful because that player may have given everything they can give. They've not really done anything wrong, but the team has to keep evolving, and so it's really hard. It's awful. And I'm the same when players leave my team as well when I don't want them to. I get really, really upset about it. And it's really something you have to learn just to be a bit harder, really, about, well, I'm letting this player go for the right reason. I believe it's the right reason. And whether that pans out to be the right or wrong reason, if I'm authentic in that decision, then that's fine. And the same with a player that's leaving the club. It's not easy for a player to leave a club either. It can be awkward, and I certainly find that very difficult when I'm like, well, I've just spent 4 years with you in my pathway, and you've had a breakout year and now you're off. It's really hard. But I think ultimately you just have to wish them well, and that the person you cared about inside your environment, you still have to ultimately care about how they move on. But I find that really difficult, and some players I still am quite hurt about it. But that's just because of the emotional investment in those athletes.
Can we ask which players?
No.
Ah. Just another area that intrigues fans is the idea of this new like salary banding that's come in this is the second year that it's been in. I think it is publicised that there's certain bands. There's band CBA, and then there's a marquee player. Is it awkward trying to actually say to a player, "I want you as a band B athlete"? And do people know who the marquee player is? Is it at all awkward for you at Pulse in that area?
Again, I've been quite transparent with our athletes who sits where. I think the marquee player we have, all our players agree she's the marquee player.
With the Potters, yes, yeah.
And so and also these guys, certainly at Pulse, they've known each other for a long time, and genuinely are pleased for each other. They champion each other, and like genuinely they all want each other to do well. So, you know, whether that's inside the club or internationally. So I think the banding sort of helps a little bit with clarity, to be honest. You know, there are only certain number of spaces, and there's always got to be three band Cs and always got to be, you know, numbers. And um that's sort of how it goes. And so, for example, with I just changed one athlete on the roster. That athlete just sort of slid in on the same band as the outgoing athlete, and I might have like a young player that comes in. Let's say next year you bring a young player and they're going to come in on the bottom tier. I don't think that's a bad thing for them to have to work their way up. You know, there's a sort of, it's not just about how good you are, but it's all the other stuff you do. You know, are you doing a community hours for the club? Are you being a dickhead? Are you, you know, supporting your teammates? All of those other things that go around that salary banding. And loyalty is a big thing for me. I think you get massive bonus points from me if you're loyal to the club. And so those players that have been loyal and are on band B, because that's the highest they can go, um, I'll try and pay them the top of that because of their loyalty, and that's one of the few ways I can pay them back. But
Mm.
I think for athletes, um, I think it's clearer, because otherwise, if you don't have banding, you know, there's a bit of like, oh, she's on this and she's on that, and why is she on that, and why is she on that? Whereas actually, the banding is this. This is all I'm allowed to pay
Yeah.
you, and this is what you get.
Can you just tell us what the bands are, because it's not super clear.
Is it the same as it was last year, Sam? Do you know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it hasn't
So
gone up.
it, according to this article that's available, it says 6 of the 9 players in a team earning between 14,000 and 20,000,
Correct.
and band C, so the final 3, between 10,000 and 14,000.
That's correct.
So that's
Yeah,
available
yeah,
on Google.
yeah, and that's still in place. That should stay in place for the first 3 years of the sort of professionalized game, and then I think there'll be a review to see where we go from there, depending on how well the clubs are going and investment in the league. But I think, yeah, I think it makes negotiations easier as well, because, you know, the salary cap is the salary cap. So I can only pay, you know, other than the marquee player, I have to stick. I would like to pay them all more, because I think my athletes are worth more.
Yeah.
And we're in London, and a cup of coffee costs you £4 here and costs you £2 in Leeds. That might be a slight exaggeration, but you know, it costs you more to be an athlete in London, but there's no London waiting.
Yeah, the reason I wanted to get that out was just because we've got to remember these guys are not getting paid a huge amount, which makes all this sort of criticism that they're getting on social media that much harder to take, I think, from a fan's perspective. So you are an England selector, Sam, and can you just give us an insight into what that process is? How many selectors there are? What's the chat about it? How long does it last?
I've been a selector for probably about 20 years now, across different age groups at England netball. I'm now a Roses. We are now called assessors, which I think is important. There's an important difference, because in the old days, there would be selection meetings around major competitions, and the selectors would be in those meetings through the whole meeting. And assessors are different. So I'm now an assessor. And what that means is I assess games and I grade them according to set criteria, which is another reason why I watch so much netball, because one of my roles is a voluntary role, by the way, it's unpaid. One of my roles is to assess Super League games and Suncorp, and used to be ANZ, but we don't have anyone playing there now. But whenever we have any English representation, we'll grade those games as well against the set criteria. And so my role is I get a game around and I will grade those players that are anyone that is eligible to play for England, will get marked and graded. And I don't see what my colleagues grade, and we're all just given random games, so we all see all teams. So and that sort of goes into a big computer spreadsheet type thing, where you then get a sort of season snapshot of where those players are playing and where they are. The assessment meetings are split, so that I'm in the first part of the assessment meeting, and it won't surprise you to know I've got an opinion about everything. So I
You're on the right
completely say,
podcast then. Don't worry about
oh,
that.
so all of us, all the assessors, really, I do think we are listened to as well. I think we say what we think. We say player X is really in form at the moment. This is why. This is what we think she's offering. Player Y not so because of X, Y, and Z. And we have a really long and considered discussion with the head coach, assistant coach, other selectors, chair of assessors, and that conversation I find to be very valuable. And we are also given information that we wouldn't know about certain athletes that they know, so that all sort of goes into this melting pot of a discussion about who should be picked and who shouldn't be picked. The difference now is there's a secondary meeting of which I'm not in, which will be with the head coach, the assistant coach for that particular campaign, the chair of assessors, and they will make the final decisions on selections. And and sometimes, I'm as surprised as everybody else, and sometimes I'm like, no, that makes complete sense to me. And I think what I would say is it's a sign of a healthy nation when everyone says you could have picked these other 5 people. And for me, that's too right. I want 3 people for every position. I want to be in a Rose's assessor selection meeting, having really difficult conversations about, right, we've got 4 wing attacks in the pipeline, we've got 3 centres, we've got whatever. And everybody knows there's sometimes positional deficit in certain positions, and that will form part of our planning and those things. But selections are by their very nature, you're never going to please everybody with the decisions that are made. It's the same in Australia, isn't it, when Jamie Lee Price doesn't get picked and everyone kicks off. But the sign of a healthy nation that can compete for medals is that there should be controversy about selections, and people will miss out even though they're good enough to go. So for me, are you good enough to go? Yes. How many players have we got in that position that are good enough to go? Could be 5. People are going to miss out, and ultimately that's down to the head coach who she wants. For me at Pulse, I might have 3 wing attacks apply to me, or 3 wing attacks I'm looking at, but I've picked lists. Okay, so the other ones have been unlucky, but that's how it goes because I prefer lists. But if you're the head coach of the national team, for me, you ultimately have to pick who you feel you can get the best out of. And sometimes that chemistry, for whatever reason, it favours one player over another. But I don't think you ever get away from that. Is that helpful?
Yeah, and I think it's what particularly Rose's fans, I know, but all of us as international netball fans, it just gives a little bit more insight into, you don't just wake up one day and pick a 12 for the Commonwealth Games and then put all the blame onto one person. But I think it's a comfort for me anyway to know that there's such stringent selection criteria with multiple eyes and tastes and experiences on that. Is it similar for the pathways? I know you've spoken and you credit a lot of London Pulse Senior success to your pathway success and how fluid it is in your way of playing and your philosophies and your culture there. Do you feel like it's as strong in the Roses pathway and system? Is the selection criteria as stringent? And have you been surprised by some of the selection decisions? Because we've been vocal about it on this podcast as well. Or do you think that needs to improve for England to long-term be top competitors at major tournaments?
I think it needs to improve. I think, but what I would like to say is that Josie Poynton's just been put into the England Academy to lead the England Academy and Futures programme. and I think she's an excellent appointment. She's really data driven. She's really, I think, going to get her teeth stuck into academy selections and what that looks like. I think it is difficult with academy because they have less games for a start, and it, I, kids develop differently, don't they? So there's a lot of thought at the moment about who you're picking. Like if you're picking someone at 16, are you picking them because they're the best 16-year-old in front of you, or are you picking them because you think they might be the best 20-year-old for World Youth Cup or Commonwealth
Mhm.
Games or whatever it might be? And so I think academy selection's hard because kids go up and down a lot more. And obviously, once you're looking at Rose's players, they tend to be much more consistent in their performance, whereas you could have an academy player that has a blinder one week and then left their brain in the changing rooms the following week and they just have a nightmare. So finding the right players, for me, I don't think there's enough about looking at their other behaviors. So are they coachable? Are they turning up? I think there could be a lot more dialogue with the clubs, because the club coaches are working with these kids week in, week out, and they know the ones that are going to the gym, they know the ones that are trying extra hard, they know the ones that, if in a game where they were going to compete, which one would they put on the court? Because the other challenge we have at academy level is that, and sorry, Nia, but to upset you again about Wales, but England at junior level just thrash everybody, right?
Mhm.
So there's not a lot of accountability in terms of, you could pick pretty much 50 English kids and they'd go and win Netball Europe, and that's also a problem for the world game, and we need the home nations being better as well. And so you need, without that competition there, there's less accountability on whether that was the right selection or not. So I think academy's trickier, but I'm really happy that she's been appointed into that role, and I'm excited to see what she does with the academy.
Quick one about your season so far, and then your upcoming game on Loughborough. Like, how have you seen Pulses play so far in the first 2 rounds, and what are you preparing for against Loughborough at the weekend?
Well, yeah, it's been good. At the risk of sounding like Karen Gregg, we have had very little prep. Similarly, we had one training session with our squad of 10 before Super Cup.
Wow.
So we've had very little prep, and we've obviously had Camo come in as a brand new athlete from South Africa. Our England players coming back. Then we had a couple of personal issues inside the camp, which meant that we didn't get together until the Thursday night as a full squad before Super Cup. So I think I'm actually very proud of how the squad are doing so far. The Thunder game was a massive game for us, so many fans in. Thunder had a ropey Super Cup and were obviously going to come out and play much more like Thunder, which they did. And I thought we played exceptionally well, to cope even with big crowd like that. That's new as well for netball domestic games. There's a lot of things for those athletes to cope with in that game, and I thought they did really well. I think our away games, Cardiff, I think heard you, Nia, say, like, why does everyone just say, oh, Cardiff are going to lose? Or Dragons are going to lose, forgive me. Because actually, they're a good team. And yes, we could do better. I'm never going to be happy with a 1-goal win against anybody. And we can do better. But actually, what I would like to see from Dragons is that they keep that level of intensity and focus against the other
Wow.
teams. Like, I think they've been guilty in the past couple of years of bigging themselves up to play the top teams and then falling short against teams that they should be beating,
Mm.
definitely should be beating. And there's quality across their roster. Um, so I think we've done well. We've had one home, one away game. There's lots of room for improvement, but we're still only, 2 weeks in. So Loughborough's going to be very hard. They're obviously playing really well at the moment. I would say they're probably the team that's had the smoothest pre-season. They've had their players in for longer. Sammy Wallace is playing really well. So, credit to them. They've made the most of having more players in and around them, to build, and they look good. But they're the competitions we want. You want to be thinking, right, how are we going to take on Loughborough? That's a new challenge for us. And then it will be another team the following week. And that's got to be a sign of a good league when there's not a single match where you think, right, I'll rest everyone. And, there genuinely is not a single game where I feel like I can do that. And that's got to be good for the league. So I think Loughborough will be tough, but we like playing them. We like matching up to them. Some great players on both sides, and I think it'll be a good game.
Few little fun questions, just little bit of a quick fire. Just
Fun. I don't do fun. I'm like the Jack
You
Deere of
do.
netball coaching.
You
You
do.
know that.
Okay, really quickly, Sam. What would you have as your pre-match meal now?
Me,
Yeah.
me, all the players.
You.
Me, coffee and a bar of chocolate.
Yeah, nice, love that. Best player that you played with,
Fiona Murta.
and you've recruited her as your assistant coach now.
Yeah, she's one of my best buddies. Yeah.
Right. Best player that you've coached. I know you don't want to favour anybody, but is there somebody that not necessarily the best player, but you enjoyed coaching them the most?
Enjoyed coaching them the most. It's still got to be for me.
Mhm.
It's just because she's so ditzy and so lovable and so brilliant and so humble and still always wants to learn. It's got to be for me.
What is the fitness test that you do at London Pulse, and who gets the best score?
We do 30 lengths, 30 court lengths. We do ISO strength and counter movement jumps. Across all of those, like the best athlete across all of those is for me.
Fair play. You've spoken on a previous podcast that we picked up that you would like London Pulse to be the best club in the world. How would you, at this moment in time, think that they'd get on if they were to go and play the champions of the Sun Cup?
I reckon we'd do all right,
Mm?
I really do.
I think that's
I think we'd be
surely
okay.
a match you could start setting up. Yeah.
Well, there are conversations about it. It's just like where and when. And how do you? I mean, it's impossible to fit into the ridiculous calendar at the moment. But I think there'd be nothing better than like the equivalent of the Champions League, like football, to run that across. Hold it in Dubai or something. We all meet up there and play a weekend of netball would be just brilliant. I think I'd love it.
And he's saying there are talks about that happening.
Well, I'm talking about it. I don't know whether anyone's listening.
We're here for it. We're here for it.
Yeah, we'll be there. We'll meet you in Dubai. Okay, I'm not going to ask you if London Pulse win a league because obviously you'd say yes. But what would you rather happen this year? England win gold at the Commonwealth Games or Arsenal win the Premier League?
Oh, England or Arsenal?
Come on.
Oh my God. It's got to be country first.
Fair enough. Hopefully they both.
I'm going to get so murdered now by all my Arsenal mates.
Yeah.
But being greedy, I'll have both.
Okay. What song will we catch you listening to on the bus on the way to a match?
Oh gosh. At the moment, it's a bit of a sort of 80s revival because of Stranger Things.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of going because the kids and I watched Stranger Things. So probably something random like Kate Bush or something like that. Anything 80s at the moment. And of course, I was there the first time round. So I'm so annoying when the kids play the song. It's I was here, this was 1984 when I was out clubbing, and they were like, look at me like, whatever. But yeah, something 80s.
And final one then, you've mentioned it already, it's your pre-match meal, but what's your coffee order? I did see you in Starbucks before the Dragons game, but I didn't catch what you had.
Yeah, it's just a latte, about 5 of them.
Nice.
Yeah. This is why I can't sleep.
That's why you don't sleep.
She's got so many netball games to watch, she needs it.
Okay, well, I think that's all from us, Sam. Thank you so much for giving us your time, which is clearly very precious.
It
But
was absolutely fascinating, Sam. Thanks for being so willing to also share so much as well. I think it's easy when you've been successful to try and gatekeep some of your methods, but yeah, it's been super fascinating. So thank you. And we didn't see the dogs. You've got 3 dogs in the background somewhere. We didn't meet one, but
Yeah, they've gone out. They've gone out in the
sick of the
garden because the
netball
sun's
chat,
come out.
probably.
So yeah, so thank you both very much for giving me the platform. Good to meet you, and well done on the podcast. I think it's very popular, so keep at it.
Thank you.
okay, Nia. So we've got the matches in the NSL coming up this weekend, but I just want to say a quick word about the SSN because it's starting this weekend, guys. And if you have not seen the SSN, I think you should spend £45 on Netball Pass. It will be the best £45 you spend as a netball fan. The quality is incredible. It's like the Premier League of netball, and I'm excited. There's been huge roster changes this year in the SSN. They've allowed lots of New Zealand players for the first time have been allowed to come over. And so it looks no one knows what to expect from all these teams. All the bottom 4 have really changed their roster. And yeah, I just want to highlight a few teams to look out for, guys. So the Firebirds are now being called the Fire Ferns because they've had so many New Zealand imports. They've also got Imo Allison in their team, so definitely keep an eye on that if you're an England
And Mary
netball fan.
Hawk for any
And Mary Hawk, yeah. The Sunshine Coast Lightning. They've got Danelle Wallum. They've got the infamous signing of Gabby Sinclair. And they've got Karen Berger, who we all saw in that New Zealand-England series. Outstanding. The Melbourne Mavericks, Tracy Neville's ex-team. Jamie Lee Price has gone down to Melbourne and she will be instrumental in their team. They've got Tara Hinchcliffe, who's an excellent goalkeeper, moved down. And they've got Unique Pallavi, who is such a character. I would highly recommend getting your eyes on the Melbourne Mavericks. I bloody love Unique, and her social media content also is fantastic.
I tried to get her to come over to the NSL when we saw them at a World Cup in South Africa. I said, please come and sign for Dragons.
Did you?
Yeah,
was she intrigued?
She was intrigued and she was flattered. But I think she's still young and a bit of a home bird and was probably destined for greater things, was maybe waiting for an offer from Australia. So yeah, chuffed for her.
Well, she was a training partner for a long time at Melbourne. I think she did last season get lots of NSL offers, but I think she turned them down to stay as a training partner at Melbourne. And actually, it worked out for her because she was the injury replacement player for Elle all of last season. So she played the full season and has now been rewarded with a contract. And yeah, get your eyes on her. She's good. Thunderbirds have also got, as ever, a stacked defence, but Shamira Sterling hopefully will be back playing in round 1. You've got Kate Heffernan coming over from New Zealand. Elmarie Vanderberg, that's where she's gone. And I've seen a couple of pre-season score lines and they look like they're a force to be reckoned with again this year. So just a few teams and names to watch out for, but yes, very exciting. I'm going to have to somehow work out a way of getting a sort of speed roundup into this pod because I live for the SSN. Right. Now we'll move on to our predictions for this week. And you're 8-6 up, Nia, and I need to just stay on the straight and narrow.
You're letting your wishful thinking take over your rational mind.
I know, yeah. But there are some really big games this week that can be quite close. So the first one is Dragons versus Thunder. And now this is at the same venue as they had last week, the House of Sport, at Friday at 7:30 again. I'm going to go with Thunder.
Me too.
Who are you going with?
Me too. Yeah, I think it'll be a challenge for Dragons to get emotionally up to the same level and replicate that same level of performance again the following week. And Thunder, as we predicted, are going to get better and better as the season goes on. So yeah, I don't think it'll be a blowout by any means, but I think Thunder will take it.
And then we've got the big double header, the Midlands versus the Capital, which is happening at Motorpoint Arena on Saturday. And I'm pretty excited to see the crowds for this because they've been hyping it up. I'd argue they could hype it a bit more on their socials. But yeah, I think that's a great initiative to try and get people through the door. You've got Panthers versus Mavs at 4 p.m. Who are you going to go for, Nia?
I am predicting Mavs will get their first win of the season.
I am too, so I'm sticking with you on that. How am I going to make these points back? And then we've got, let's be honest, the big one. Loughborough Lightning versus Pulse at 7:30 p.m. Who are you? Oh, shall I go first on this one?
Go on then.
I'm gonna go Loughborough.
How dare you? We just had Sam Bird on the podcast.
Oh, it's so hard, but I'm trying to go with my head over my heart.
No, I'm going to go for Loughborough as well, but I think it will be an extra time job.
Oh, maybe we should.
Yeah.
No, not extra points for extra time. Nottingham Forest versus Leeds Rhinos, also at the Most Point Arena on Sunday.
I'm actually going to go for Leeds Rhinos to take this one.
I'm going for Forest.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. I think they're going to grind out a win. I think it'll be a really good game. I think all of those games look like they're going to be great matchups, so pretty exciting times. Thank you for making it with us this far. Please do like, subscribe, and comment like you've been doing. We love hearing them, and we will see you next week.
I'm really passionate about netball.